The light Bond had seen that night should not have existed. It had no source, no reflection, no logical explanation. And yet it had watched him back. The destroyed laboratory was already being erased from official records, its scientists classified as missing, its attackers listed as unknown. To MI6, it was a closed incident. To Bond, it was the beginning of something far more dangerous. Because whoever had crossed the event horizon of secrecy had done so deliberately. And they were confident that James Bond would be too late to stop what came next. The Arctic did not celebrate victory. It simply absorbed the wreckage. Bond lay strapped inside the helicopter, the vibration a distant thrum beneath layers of cold and pain. The medics worked quietly, efficient, practiced, but they avoided his eyes. They always did after something like this. After a place that should not have existed stopped existing. "Vitals stable," one of them said. Bond opened his eyes. White ceiling. Red instrument lights. Reality felt solid again. Imperfect, uneven, real. He turned his head slightly. Did it work? The medic hesitated, then nodded. Every predictive network tied to Helios collapsed within minutes. Stock markets glitched. Military AIs went dark. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to scare the right people. Bond closed his eyes again. Good. London felt louder than he remembered. Traffic. Voices. Sirens overlapping in unscripted chaos. Bond stood on the Thames embankment, coat pulled tight, watching the water move without pattern. For the first time in weeks, no pressure pushed at the back of his mind. No narrowing. No invisible hand guiding the moment where thought became action. Em joined him, hands clasped behind her back. "You didn't just destroy a machine," she said. "You destabilized an entire philosophy." Bond didn't look at her. It was already unstable. "Voss is gone," Em continued. "Vanished during the collapse. No body. No signal." Bond finally turned. "Men like him don't disappear," he said. "They decentralize." Em nodded. "Which is why the world just became Messier." Bond allowed himself a thin smile. "That's the natural state." That night, Bond couldn't sleep. Not because of memories, but because of absence. He stood in his flat, lights off, city glow bleeding through the windows. He felt it then, a gap. A missing pressure. The Horizon Core had trained him to feel resistance. Without it, choice felt wider, almost dangerous. He poured a drink, didn't finish it. The phone rang. Bond stared at it for 3 full seconds before answering. "Yes." Dr. Voss's voice came through, calm, amused, unmistakably alive. "Mr. Bond," Voss said. "You see. Even now, you hesitate." Bond didn't react. "You sound disappointed." "On the contrary," Voss replied. "You proved my final hypothesis." Bond leaned against the counter. "Which is?" "That true chaos cannot be controlled," Voss said. "Only released." A pause. "I never intended Helios to survive," Voss continued. "It was a forcing function. To show the world what it fears most, freedom without guardrails." Bond's jaw tightened. "You killed people to make a point." "Yes," Voss said softly. "And you killed a future to stop me." Another pause. "Tell me, James, do you feel safer now?" Bond looked out at the city, at the millions of uncoordinated lives, colliding and diverging. "No," he said. "But I feel awake." Voss laughed quietly. "Then my work is done." The line went dead. Days later, a package arrived at MI6. No return address. Inside, a small black sphere, cracked, inert. A fragment of the Horizon core. Alongside it, a handwritten note. Choice is not the absence of structure. It is the refusal to surrender it. Bond read it once. Then again. M watched him from across the room. What do we do with it? Bond considered the sphere. He could destroy it. Secure it. Bury it. He made a different choice. Nothing, he said. M raised an eyebrow. Lock it away, Bond continued. No research. No committees. Let it be a reminder, not a tool. M studied him. Then nodded. Very well. As Bond turned to leave, M spoke again. You know this won't be the last attempt. Bond paused at the door. I know, he said. That's why it matters. Bond walked alone through the city, blending into the crowd. No patterns. No prediction. Just motion. He felt memories rise and fall naturally now, uncompressed, unedited. Loss still hurt. Regret still lingered. But they arrived when they chose to, not when something else decided they should. The future stretched ahead, uncertain, inefficient, gloriously unstable. Bond lit a cigarette, then crushed it underfoot without taking a drag. Some habits deserved to end. He disappeared into the noise, carrying the one truth no machine could ever model. A man was not defined by the decisions he made, but by the moments when he refused to let anyone else make them for him. The world didn't notice the Arctic went silent. Markets adjusted. Governments breathed. Life continued as if Bond's mission had been a local weather anomaly. Only he knew the storm wasn't over. From the ashes of the Horizon core, tiny fragments had escaped. Microprocessors capable of predicting decision thresholds, compact enough to be concealed inside drones, vehicles, even implants. Each fragment was a seed of chaos. Each fragment, a tool for those bold, or insane, enough to use it. Bond stood atop a weathered building in Istanbul, rain slicing across the city like knives. Neon signs blurred into streaks, reflections in puddles dancing erratically. Perfect cover for someone who didn't want to be predictable. In his earpiece, Q's voice whispered, Bond, we've traced one shard entering the black market network. Estimated trajectory, eastwards through underground labs in Asia and Europe. Probability of compromise, 90% if intercepted. This is not a drill. Bond flicked his coat, checking the weapons inside, a silenced pistol, a short knife, and a pocket device designed to detect temporal anomalies in cognitive tech. They're faster than last time, he muttered. But still linear. They assume order. Q chuckled softly. They underestimate the chaos factor, you. Bond smiled thinly. He knew this was just the beginning. The shard's last known location, an abandoned textile factory turned black market lab, hidden beneath the narrow streets of Istanbul. Bond approached silently, moving like water around obstacles. The first operative appeared, mid-20s, trained to anticipate human behavior, muscles honed to react with algorithmic precision. Bond didn't wait. He kicked a metal barrel, creating a loud clatter. The operative froze, just for a fraction of a second. That was all Bond needed. Move 1. He rolled low, sweeping the man's legs from under him. Move 2. The operative pivoted, striking with a calculated elbow. Bond ducked, took the angle, and slammed the attacker against a pillar. Move 3. Another operative appeared, firing a stun pistol. Bond flipped backward, catching the trajectory mid-air, disarming the man with a precise wrist twist. Each move deliberate, each fight like a martial choreography, but unpredictable. Just like Imran's series style, realistic, close quarters, step by step. Inside, the lab was a mess of broken glass, scattered electronics, and flickering monitors displaying schematics of horizon fragments. One terminal glowed brighter. A shard had been reactivated remotely, now interfacing with a network of predictive AI drones. Bond knelt beside it, running a scan with his device. "Q, it's interfacing with drones," he whispered. "Estimated reach, entire European mainland if fully deployed," Q replied. "Each drone carries micro-decision processors, predicts human reactions in real time." Bond, one misstep. "I know," Bond interrupted, already analyzing patterns. He needed chaos. He yanked the shard from its docking. The drones immediately responded, seeking to recalculate human paths. Bond activated a small EMP device, localized, irregular pulse. Some drones fell. Some adapted. Some went rogue. Chaos. Exactly what he wanted. A shadow moved. Another operative, faster, more calculated. Bond was ready. He used a mirror reflection from a broken window to trick the man's aim. He shifted, breaking expected angles, striking with a knee to midsection, elbow to jaw. The man hit the ground, but Bond didn't stop. Outside, the city blurred with neon rain. Bond sprinted across rooftops, shards safely in his coat. Each jump, each turn, he intentionally misaligned motion, unreadable patterns. Behind him, the network tried to adapt. It couldn't. Every human reaction Bond created collapsed prediction windows. Bond met the informant in a quiet cafe near the Bosphorus. Middle-aged man, face lined with secrets. No bodyguards. Smells like tobacco and oil. "You have it?" the informant asked. Bond placed the shard on the table. "One of many. If Voss or Helios get this, they could predict the next 5 human moves in Istanbul before they happen." The informant paled. 5. That's impossible. "Not for them," Bond said. "But for me. Already accounted for randomness." Bond briefed the informant on neural latency manipulations and decision field compression, new tech names, explained in detail, like in Imran series. Neural echo trap delays a subject's reaction by altering microcognitive pathways. Temporal bias lens forces predictions about movement patterns, subverting instinct. Micro-decision processor miniaturized shard that interfaces with AI to anticipate and manipulate decisions. The informant scribbled notes, fascinated and terrified. Bond knew this was just Act II's opening move. Every fragment recovered, every misstep exploited, would escalate to the next showdown. The rain intensified. Bond looked out over Istanbul, shard in hand, mind racing with patterns and anti-patterns. Helios would retaliate. Drones would adapt. Voss had a plan. Bond smiled faintly, cigarette untouched. "Time to rewrite the game," he muttered. The shard pulsed faintly in his coat, as if alive. Chaos was spreading, but now he was the eye in the storm. Tokyo never slept, it merely cycled between neon and shadow, order and chaos. Bond arrived at Haneda Airport under the cover of pre-dawn fog, the city's pulse barely detectable beneath layers of humidity and neon reflections. He carried the shard in a reinforced case, disguised as a high-end tech prototype for a corporate client. Q's voice came quietly over the encrypted earpiece. "Bond, the shard has been sold to a private syndicate in Tokyo's Shinjuku district. They've integrated it into a network of autonomous drones and predictive software. Your window to intercept is slim." Bond adjusted his jacket, concealing the weight of the shard. "Slim," he muttered, "means I move fast, irregularly, and unpredictably." The lab was hidden behind an abandoned pachinko parlor, the entrance disguised as a vending machine. Bond observed first drone patrols, digital locks, infrared beams, and biometric sensors. He took a small device from his pocket, a temporal signal jammer. A soft pulse neutralized the infrared grid for exactly 2.7 seconds, enough for him to slip inside. Inside, chaos was mechanical. Drones hovered in formation, scanning each corner, their micro-decision processors calculating human motion in real time. Bond moved against rhythm. Oh, he dropped small mirrors to create phantom heat signatures. He rolled across vents, breaking predictable patterns. Oh, he used ceiling scaffolding to maneuver above the drone's line of sight. Each move shredded the system's predictions. Every micro-adjustment created uncertainty, forcing the processors to recalibrate, slowing their response. Bond reached the main control panel. Screens displayed neural latency fields and decision probability matrices. Q guided him. Decision probability matrix measures likelihood of any human action within 0.3 seconds. Neural latency field introduces micro-delays to thought-to-action pathways. Temporal echo node projects predicted reactions across a network of drones. Bond studied the data. The system wasn't just monitoring humans, it was learning to manipulate them. He set a small EMP pulse, staggered in irregular intervals, enough to disrupt a portion of the network. Drones went haywire, some crashed into walls, others drifted out of pattern. 3 syndicate operatives appeared, blocking his exit. Bond's approach, Imran series-style combat, detailed and cinematic. 1. First operative, lunged with a blade. Bond sidestepped, grabbed the attacker's wrist, twisted, and used momentum to throw him into a metal support beam. 2. Second operative, fired a stun pistol. Bond ducked, rolled over the first operative, and elbowed the shooter in the jaw mid-air. 3. Third operative, trained for predictive strikes. Bond disrupted timing by dropping a shard-reflective panel, reflecting light and creating a microlag in perception. He struck from an unexpected angle, knee and forearm driving the man down. Drones hovered chaotically around the room, trying to predict Bond's next move. He laughed softly. Unpredictability was his weapon. With the operatives neutralized and the network destabilized, Bond secured the shard in a reinforced case. Outside, Tokyo streets were waking up. Bond blended into the crowd, intentionally misaligning his movement from surveillance patterns. Zigzagging through pedestrian flows. Entering narrow alleyways. Taking stairs and elevators with irregular timing. Every step was a countermeasure against predictive modeling, ensuring the syndicate could not track him accurately. Q's voice whispered, "Bond, there's another shard. Heading to Dubai. If you don't intercept it, they could coordinate a regional network using predictive drones." Bond exhaled, glancing at the shard in his hand. "Then Dubai it is," he muttered. Time to push the chaos further. As Bond disappeared into Tokyo's neon mist, the city seemed alive with uncertainty. The first shard recovered. The syndicate exposed and disrupted. Predictive networks destabilized, but the global threat was far from over. Bond knew one truth. Every fragment retrieved was only the beginning. Every victory carried the weight of unseen enemies. And the next battle, Dubai, would test not only his skill, but his ability to remain unpredictable in a world trying to erase choice itself. The world was waking to chaos that didn't announce itself. From Istanbul to Dubai, horizon shards were resurfacing. Each fragment capable of predicting micro-decisions, each one a seed of global instability. Yet, for Bond, chaos was a tool, a weapon against predictability. He stood in the MI6 operations room, maps and holograms projected around him like a three-dimensional chessboard. Lines of light traced the movement of shards, colored dots representing intercepted shipments, potential operatives, and unexplored anomalies. Q, appearing on the hologram, gestured toward the web of light. Bond, fragments have been traced to Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. The network is converging. If they combine, predictive algorithms will cover every major human decision within targeted regions. Entire populations could be manipulated before they move. Bond's eyes narrowed. And Voss. Q's expression hardened. He's not just observing. He's actively guiding the shard's integration. We estimate he has 3 operatives on the ground, each trained to adapt to human unpredictability. One of them, Kazuo, is extremely dangerous. Bond ran a hand through his hair. The room felt suddenly too small, reality pressing against the edges of probability. The first recovery mission took Bond to Paris, a city of light, shadow, and underground secrets. He arrived under the cover of pre-dawn fog, rain making the streets reflective and slippery, a perfect cover for unpredictability. The lab was hidden in an abandoned metro station. Drone patrols hovered silently, blue sensor beams slicing the mist. Bond studied the scene from the mezzanine above. Cinematic detailing of infiltration. A rain-drenched steps leading to the platform, echoing each footstep. Flickering fluorescent lights casting unpredictable shadows. A water puddles reflecting drones scanning patterns. Bond crouched behind a maintenance hatch, pulling a small temporal distortion device from his belt. He activated it, sending irregular electromagnetic pulses across a radius that momentarily scrambled drone sensors. 3 operatives emerged, moving in formation, perfectly timed, pre-calculated. Bond's martial arts response. 1. First operative, lunged with a baton. Bond sidestepped, rolled low, and executed a sweeping leg kick that sent the man colliding into a concrete wall. The sound echoed, dripping into the silent station. 2. Second operative, drew a pulse pistol. Bond rolled diagonally, catching the man off guard, elbow driving into the jaw mid-spin. The man staggered backward, drones misreading the motion as compliant. 3. Third operative, Kazuo's assistant faster, trained to predict Bond's moves. Bond threw a loose pipe across the floor, visual distraction. As the operative tracked it, Bond closed the distance, striking with forearm to temple and a knee to midsection. Drones buzzed above, recalculating, confused by human unpredictability. The fight was a dance of chaos versus algorithm, every strike designed to break prediction windows. Bond approached the main console. Holographic displays showed fragment integration into global networks. Q explained. Neural latency manipulators, devices that subtly delay human decision-making. Micro-decision processors, tiny shards predicting actions in less than 0.2 seconds. Temporal echo nodes, propagate predicted reactions across a network to manipulate crowds. Bond analyzed patterns in real time, seeing not just physical threats, but cognitive algorithms in action, a map of human thought, compressed and manipulated. With a deep breath, Bond unplugged the shard, placing it into a reinforced case. Drones activated automatically. He sprinted across slippery platforms, using wet surfaces for unpredictability, sliding and rolling into stairwells to escape line of sight. Bond and Q studied the global map afterward. Istanbul, recovered. Dubai, recovered. Paris, recovered. Remaining, Tokyo, Kazuo, Berlin, Singapore. Each point on the hologram pulsed, a heartbeat of probability waiting to be disrupted. Bond's strategy: move chaotically, unpredictably, across continents, destabilizing each network fragment before Voss's operatives could synchronize them. Bond lit a cigarette atop a Parisian rooftop. Rainwater ran down the sides of buildings, reflecting city lights in fractured, chaotic patterns. He thought of Voss, of Kazuo, of the global network threatening to collapse free will itself. They calculate patterns. I create them and break them, Bond whispered. Above, a drone flickered in and out of existence, one last fragment unaccounted for. The game had just entered its deadliest phase. Bond inhaled sharply. The world was wide, dangerous, and perfectly unpredictable. The night sky above Tokyo was fractured by neon signs, glowing advertisements, and the constant hum of drones patrolling the streets. Bond landed on the rooftop of a high-rise, rain-slicked tiles beneath his boots, shard secured in a reinforced case. His eyes scanned the city, movement predicted, but not chaotic enough for a human mind. Q's voice came quietly in the earpiece. Bond, Kazuo has integrated the Tokyo shard into a network of autonomous drones, now interfacing with local traffic AI. Probability of civilians being affected: high. If you hesitate, the system anticipates every exit you'll take. Bond's lips curved into a faint smile. Then I move where they cannot expect. The target: a warehouse converted into a high-tech data hub. Bond surveyed the perimeter. Motion sensors humming softly. Drones hovering silently, scanning patterns. Hollow projections marking entrances and exits. Bond activated a temporal distortion field, scrambling sensor readings for exactly 4.3 seconds. He slipped into a side entrance, crouching low, blending with shadows reflected from neon lights outside. Inside, cold metal floor. Flickering fluorescent lights creating shifting shadows. Wires snaking across walls, pulsing with active energy. Every step Bond took was irregular, slowing, accelerating, then pausing unexpectedly. The predictive drones miscalculated his trajectory. 3 elite operatives waited, ready to intercept Bond. Bond's response: 1. First operative lunged with a sharp baton. Bond rolled under, grabbed the man's legs, and swept him into a metal pillar. Sparks flew as the baton hit steel. 2. Second operative fired a stun pistol. Bond ducked, rolled diagonally, and delivered an elbow strike mid-spin. 3. Third operative, Kazuo's right hand predicted Bond's angle. Bond improvised, threw a reflective shard across the floor, creating a phantom trajectory. He closed the distance, striking with forearm and knee combo, sending the operative sprawling. Above, drones recalculated every motion, struggling to predict human chaotic behavior. Bond reached the shard interface. The Tokyo shard projected decision latency matrices, showing how the system predicted human micromovements. Drones were connected to a neural echo network, propagating predicted reactions citywide. Micro-decision processors embedded in city infrastructure could preemptively manipulate pedestrian and vehicle flow. Bond disabled the shard using a localized EMP pulse, staggered randomly to confuse predictive algorithms. Drones faltered, crashing into walls and ceilings. While Bond destabilized Tokyo, Berlin experienced its own breach. Voss's operatives had infiltrated a research facility, integrating another shard into Europe's transport network. Trains, subways, and vehicular systems were synchronized with predictive drones, creating potential mass control. Bond realized time was limited. He had to split focus, destabilize Berlin remotely, while finishing Tokyo. Using Q's holographic interface, Bond directed small EMP pulses in Berlin, creating micro-failures in the network, delaying synchronization. Chaos ensued, trains slowed unexpectedly, drones collided mid-air, and predictive algorithms recalculated endlessly. Kazuo appeared unexpectedly behind Bond in Tokyo, agile and deadly. Close quarters combat. Kazuo struck with a spinning elbow. Bond ducked, rolling, striking with knee and forearm. Kazuo countered with a low sweep. Bond spun over him, using environmental objects, pipes, crates, to disrupt timing. Drones buzzed overhead, trying to anticipate Bond's next move. He intentionally created chaotic vectors, sliding, rolling, pausing unpredictably, to make prediction impossible. Finally, Bond delivered a finishing strike, leaving Kazuo stunned but alive. Bond retrieved the Tokyo shard. Q confirmed Berlin's network was destabilized. Two global sites disrupted in one night. Kazuo escaped, but now Bond knew his full capabilities. The Horizon network was unstable, but Voss's ultimate plan remained hidden, unpredictable, and dangerous. Bond lit a cigarette atop Tokyo's neon-lit rooftop, shards in case, rain slicking streets below. They calculate everything, except the chaos I create. He vanished into shadows, already planning his next move, Europe's final shard, Voss's master plan, and the ultimate confrontation. The Alps loomed under a pale winter sun, sharp peaks cutting into gray clouds. Snow swirled across the valleys, masking movement. Bond stood on a ridge, coat flapping against the icy wind, the shards collected from Tokyo, Dubai, and Paris secured in a specialized case. Q's voice crackled through the earpiece. Bond, intelligence confirms Helios has consolidated the remaining fragments in a hidden research facility in the Austrian Alps. Voss himself is present. Security, lethal, adaptive, and networked with predictive algorithms. Probability of extraction without conflict, 0. Bond exhaled. He didn't need probability. He needed chaos. The facility was carved into the mountainside, reinforced concrete blending with jagged rock. Sensors glowed faintly under snow, automated turrets rotated silently, and drones patrolled the open courtyard. Bond approached via a narrow ice ridge. A snow crunching softly under boots. A wind slicing across the ridge, throwing off thermal scans. Shadowed alcoves used as cover. He deployed a temporal disruption device, creating staggered electromagnetic pulses that temporarily desynchronized drone coordination. The system flickered, recalculating movement patterns, just enough for Bond to approach the entrance. Inside, the facility was cold, clinical, yet humming with hidden energy. Lab tables stacked with micro-decision processors. Holoscreens showing real-time predictive maps of cities worldwide. Voss's presence, unmistakable, calm, eyes glinting with intellectual thrill. Two elite operatives intercepted Bond immediately. Step-by-step cinematic combat. 1. First operative swung a heavy baton. Bond rolled low, grabbed the man's legs, and drove him into a steel table, shattering glass and metal. 2. Second operative fired a neural disruptor pistol. Bond ducked, sliding under the trajectory, and elbowed the operative mid-spin. 3. Drones overhead tried to predict Bond's path, but he created chaotic movement, sliding, twisting, pausing unpredictably, making each strike unreadable. Bond reached the inner sanctum. Voss emerged from shadows, composed and calculating. "Bond," he said softly, "I hoped you'd arrive. The network is complete. Soon, humanity will move according to logic, not chance. Free will is a relic. Chaos, a disease." Bond smirked faintly. "And here I thought you liked science." Voss gestured. Holographic projections lit the room, shards integrated into neural echo nodes worldwide. The system predicted, influenced, and subtly manipulated global human behavior. Bond realized, one wrong move here could give Voss control over millions. Kazuo appeared silently behind Voss, weapon drawn. Bond's reaction, predictive chaos integration. 1. Kazuo strikes, spinning elbow, Bond ducks, rolls, and delivers a forearm strike. 2. Voss attempts intervention with a neural disruptor. Bond throws a reflective shard to disrupt its sensors. 3. Environment used, broken glass, cables, metal tables as tools for unpredictability. 4. Bond versus Kazuo, continuous flow of kicks, elbows, knee strikes, dodges, rolls, and improvised weapon use. 5. Drones integrate combat. Bond uses staggered EMP pulses to disable some while drones crash into facility walls. Every move choreographed yet unpredictable, cinematic, suspenseful. Bond knew he couldn't simply take shards, they were too integrated. He needed to destroy the central hub, disrupt predictive networks, but survive. He rigged EMP devices at strategic points, created multiple chaotic diversions, forced Voss's operatives to split, overloading predictive algorithms. Final confrontation. Bond faces Voss directly. Voss, one choice remains, Bond. Predictable or chaotic? Bond, I choose human. Bond detonates EMP, severing shard networks. Lights flicker, drones collapse, neural feedback loops crash. The room fills with sparks, alarms wailing, a visual chaos storm. Bond exits the burning facility. A snowstorm outside, mixing with sparks from inside. Helicopter extraction waiting on ridge. Voss and Kazuo disappeared in the chaos, leaving only questions. Bond looks at shards, now inert. They calculated everything, except unpredictability, he mutters. As Bond boards the helicopter, Q's voice echoes. Bond, the world, is back in human hands, for now. Bond exhales, city lights reflected in icy snow, knowing the fight against predictive control is never truly over. The world had a false sense of calm. From the Alps to Tokyo, Bond's missions had dismantled the horizon shards. Networks were destabilized. Predictive systems collapsed. Yet in the shadows, Voss was already orchestrating a global counterattack, more sophisticated, more lethal, and with new tech beyond even Horizon's original design. Bond arrived in Singapore, the city a neon maze of rain-slick streets, sky bridges, and high-rise towers. He had intel from Question. Voss was testing a new neural manipulation device, capable of influencing not just decisions, but emotional responses. Locations: private labs hidden under luxury skyscrapers and high-security underground complexes. Operatives: Kazuo plus 2 newly trained elite assassins, each enhanced with combat tech. Bond adjusted his gloves, feeling the shard case empty but heavy with memory. Chaos was his weapon, intuition his guide. The target: a private lab hidden beneath a skyscraper in Marina Bay. Security drones patrolled corridors, scanning thermal and motion patterns. Laser grids zigzagged across hallways. Surveillance cameras anticipated angles and movement. Bond deployed nano-EMP devices and reflective shard panels, creating false movement patterns. His motion. Step 1. Slow across shadows. Step 2. Sudden dash, sliding behind metallic crates. Step 3. Roll and pivot to avoid line of sight. Drones miscalculated, striking walls and each other. Bond smiled faintly. Bond encountered Kazuo first, flanked by 2 enhanced operatives. Combat unfolded like a slow-motion film scene. 1. Operative number 1 launched a spinning kick. Bond dodged, countered with forearm strike, then elbowed while pivoting. 2. Operative number 2 fired a pulse pistol. Bond ducked, rolled, using debris as cover, striking the operative with precise knee-elbow combo. 3. Kazuo, adaptive, predicting Bond's movements. Bond improvised using environment, sliding cables, throwing reflective shards, creating false angles, and landing combination strikes in milliseconds. Drones overhead attempted to anticipate, but Bond created unpredictable vectors, dismantling predictive modeling. Bond reached the main console projecting Voss's new neural manipulation network. Q's holographic feed explained. Emotional override nodes influence stress, fear, confidence levels in targeted subjects. Predictive Reaction Matrix version 2.0 anticipates human microdecision and emotional response. Cognitive loop amplifiers amplify hesitation or impulsiveness, forcing predictable errors. Bond carefully analyzed the system. The stakes: one misstep could collapse human behavior in an entire skyscraper complex. He connected a nano-EMP override to stagger nodes, manipulated drone attack vectors to overload computational logic. Who engaged in close-quarter combat while remotely destabilizing the network. Every step, cinematic, choreographed, unpredictable. Voss appeared, calm, controlled, his presence commanding. Voss, James, your chaos is impressive, but predictable in its pattern. Bond, then I'll break it. The fight. Environment use, glass shards, metal pipes, hanging cables. Bond versus Voss, hand-to-hand combat interspersed with EMP-triggered distractions. Kazuo and operatives, multiple simultaneous encounters, Bond leveraging chaotic movement and environmental tactics. Drones, staggered EMP pulses, collision with each other, creating cinematic chaos. Voss's new tech attempted to influence Bond's reactions, triggering micro-delays in decision-making. Bond relied on instinct, human intuition, breaking algorithmic prediction at every moment. The lab erupted into sparks, alarms, and cascading drones as EMP devices detonated. Voss disappeared in the chaos, leaving only fragments of tech behind. Kazuo escaped, but wounded, leaving Bond with advantage for next mission. Bond secured remaining devices, destabilized global network. Bond stepped onto the rooftop, neon lights reflecting off rain-slick tiles. He lit a cigarette, shards inert in his bag. They calculate patterns, but chaos isn't just movement, it's thought, instinct, and timing beyond any algorithm. The city below shimmered with uncertainty. The war wasn't over. The world had become a chessboard, and every piece moved with calculated precision, except Bond. From the rooftops of Berlin to Tokyo's neon corridors, Dubai's skyscrapers to Singapore's high-tech labs, Voss had orchestrated a coordinated offensive, leveraging the Shard's technology to predict and manipulate human behavior. Bond touched down in Berlin, snow swirling around him, streets eerily empty, but city cameras humming with micro-decision algorithms. His objective: intercept a shard before it integrated with the European transport network, while Q coordinated simultaneous missions in Tokyo and Dubai. Chaos had to be synchronized, but unpredictable. Bond moved like a shadow. Snow crunching under boots, obscured by drifting fog. Thermal drones scanning, recalibrating every microsecond. Streetlights flickering, casting fragmented shadows across building facades. A squad of elite operatives waited in the underground metro tunnels, armed with pulse pistols and advanced combat drones. Cinematic combat detailing. 1. Operative number 1 lunged with a baton. Bond rolled low, sweeping his legs, spinning him into a concrete pillar. 2. Operative number 2 fired a predictive stun pistol. Bond twisted mid-air, landing behind cover, striking with elbow and knee combination. 3. Drone attack, hovering above, recalculating movement patterns. Bond used reflective shards to misdirect sensors, forcing drones to collide and crash. Every move was choreographed chaos, blending martial arts and environmental improvisation. While Bond fought in Berlin, Tokyo shards were activated in a corporate high-rise by Kazuo's remaining team. Q fed Bond holographic overlays from Tokyo cameras. A Bond used predictive counter-EMP pulses remotely, staggering drones and causing misfires. Street-level chaos, pedestrians and vehicles delayed or misdirected, just enough to create openings for Bond's allies to extract shards. The cinematic tension, 2 continents, 1 operative, multiple networks collapsing under controlled chaos. In Dubai, Voss's elite assassins attempted to integrate a shard into a desert-based drone network, controlling urban traffic and surveillance grids. Bond coordinated with Q via encrypted hologram. A remote EMP pulses destabilized drones. A Bond used environmental tactics, sliding along rooftops, using reflective glass and neon lights to obscure movement. Operatives attempted ambush. Bond's unpredictable timing neutralized them one by one. The choreography, a dance of chaos, technology, and martial arts. High-octane, cinematic, pulse-pounding. At the center of it all, Voss's new quantum predictive core. Predictive algorithms, capable of forecasting human decision-making at multiple scales. Neural echo nodes amplify hesitation, fear, or confidence. Cognitive overload protocols force micro-delays, destabilizing physical and mental reactions. Bond realized the system anticipated every logical move, but couldn't predict irrational, chaotic human behavior. Using staggered EMP bursts and environmental manipulation. Exploiting human unpredictability. While combining martial arts precision with tactical improvisation. Bond was the chaos the system could not calculate. Bond faced multiple threats at once. Berlin, operatives and drones in subway tunnels. Tokyo, Kazuo directing shard activation. Dubai, drone swarm and assassins coordinating network integration. Step-by-step cinematic detailing. 1. Bond neutralized Berlin operatives with precise strikes, using walls, rails, and debris for leverage. 2. He remotely disrupted Tokyo drones, staggering patterns, giving allies an opening. 3. In Dubai, he improvised, sliding across rooftops, deploying EMPs, turning environmental hazards into weapons. 4. Kazuo attempted to intercept Bond in Tokyo. Bond countered with unexpected angles, rolling, and environmental attacks. The result, shards destabilized, networks fragmented, Voss's plan temporarily in chaos, but the mastermind remained at large. Bond stood on a Berlin rooftop, night snow reflecting city lights. All major shards temporarily secured. Voss survived, adapting, retreating to hidden locations. Kazuo wounded, yet escaped to regroup. Bond exhaled, cigarette smoke mixing with cold air, holographic overlays from Q showing fractured global networks. They anticipate patterns. I create chaos. And chaos is unpredictable. The war had escalated from cities to continents. Bond's next challenge: track Voss before he consolidates a global network of predictive technology beyond anything humanity has seen. The Pacific waves crashed violently against jagged cliffs, white foam rising like spirits warning of the approaching storm. Hidden in plain sight, Helios's island facility lay camouflaged, an intricate network of metal, glass, and advanced tech. Bond's helicopter descended through storm clouds. Q's voice crackled. Bond, this is it. Voss has consolidated all shards into the quantum core. Every predictive network feeds directly into it. If he succeeds, he can manipulate decisions globally, transport, finance, even governments. Probability of failure is irrelevant. This must be stopped. Bond gripped the shard case. Then I make my own probability. The island was a fortress. Sensor grids over every path, motion, and thermal scan. Automated turrets hidden behind rock formations. Drones patrolling rooftops, under bridges, and in internal corridors. Bond activated nano-EMP microbursts, creating staggered chaos in sensor readings. Each pulse was calculated unpredictably, allowing him to move through the outer perimeter unseen. Rain-slick rocks gave stealth cover. A thunder drowned footsteps. A Bond used shadowed angles, broken staircases, and environmental reflections to avoid line of sight. Every movement was a chess piece, yet unpredictable to any algorithm. Inside the facility, Helios operatives armed with advanced weaponry, combat drones. Kazuo appeared immediately, agile, lethal. Environmental hazards, electrical conduits sparking, glass panels reflecting light, narrow catwalks over machinery. Step-by-step combat detailing. 1. Operative number 1. Lunged with energy baton. Bond rolled, elbowing mid-spin, sending him into a spark-laden console. 2. Drone attack. Bond through reflective shards, misdirecting sensors. Staggered EMP pulses disabled several drones. 3. Kazuo. Spinning kick. Bond pivoted, grabbed railing, threw him into scaffolding. 4. Environmental tactics. Hanging cables used to trip drones, glass shards for sensor misdirection, machinery vibrations to destabilize footing. Bond moved like a shadow among chaos, blending martial arts, improvisation, and technology disruption. Voss stood in front of the quantum core, shards floating inside a levitating energy matrix. Voss. Bond. You've been impressive, but predictable in your unpredictability. The human mind is a variable I can now control. Bond. Not human enough, Voss. You forgot chaos isn't predictable. It's instinct, intuition, survival. Voss activated cognitive amplifiers. Micro-delays in Bond's reflexes. Neural feedback pulses to force hesitation. Predictive overlay drones anticipating his every move. The facility hummed with lethal energy. Lights flickered, drones swarmed, and machinery pulsed in synchronization with Voss's neural system. Bond faced a Voss with tech-augmented combat capabilities. Kazuo, recovered and fully alert. Swarms of drones predicting movements. Step-by-step action. 1. Bond dodged synchronized drone strike, rolled across scaffolding. 2. Forearm knee elbow combo to Kazuo, pushing him back. 3. Environmental advantage. Sparks, broken railings, swinging chains. 4. Bond spins, slamming Kazuo into machinery, momentarily disabling him. 5. Voss attempts direct neural attack. Bond throws reflective shard, misaligning sensors. 6. EMP microbursts stagger drone swarm. 7. Chaos escalates. Drones collide, alarms blare, energy pulses flicker. Finally, Bond reaches the quantum core. A Bond places staggered EMPs strategically around the quantum core. Initiates a chaotic override, destabilizing predictive networks. Core erupts in sparks, energy arcs flying, drones crashing. Voss escapes briefly but is wounded, fleeing into chaos of collapsing facility. Bond. Predictive networks? Chaos just reset the game. The facility collapses, but fragments of Voss's tech survive. Bond stands on cliff edge, waves crashing below, shards now inert. Global predictive networks destabilized. Voss wounded, escaped, future threat imminent. Kazuo incapacitated, temporarily out of play. Bond proven that human instinct, chaos, and improvisation trump even the most advanced predictive tech. Bond exhaled, cigarette smoke mixing with salty spray. The world is unpredictable, and it stays that way, for now. The Helios island had transformed into a war zone. Sparks flew, smoke twisted through shattered corridors, and alarms blared in deafening pulses. The quantum core, partially destabilized from Bond's previous EMP strikes, hummed erratically, casting blue-white light that flickered across steel walls. Bond crouched behind a fallen console, shards in case, eyes scanning every shadow. Q's last transmission. Bond, Kazuo and Voss are converging on the core. Probability of survival without engagement. Negligible. Use environment. Use chaos. And don't hesitate. Bond exhaled sharply. This wasn't just combat, it was a symphony of chaos against precision. Kazuo emerged first, agile as ever. Eyes cold, muscles coiled like spring-loaded steel. Stealthy approach through debris and smoke. Drones hovering strategically, anticipating Bond's reflexes. Voss appeared next, his calm demeanor contrasting the chaos. Neural augmentation visible as faint glowing circuits on his temples. Handheld control device for drones and core energy pulses. Aura of intelligence and menace, prepared to manipulate the battle itself. Bond knew this was the ultimate test, human instinct and improvisation versus algorithmic precision and combat training. Cinematic detailing. 1. Initial clash. Kazuo lunged with spinning elbow. Bond ducked, rolled low, struck with forearm to ribs, pivoting behind debris. 2. Kazuo's counter. Leg sweep. Bond jumped, using hanging cable to swing over debris, landing on Kazuo's back, knee strike to midsection. 3. Environment. Sparks, broken rails, and glass shards used as misdirection. 4. Drones. Kazuo triggered swarm. Bond threw reflective shards and activated staggered EMP bursts, causing drones to crash into walls. Every strike choreographed yet unpredictable, cinematic, with Bond exploiting chaos against Kazuo's predictability. Voss activated neural echo amplifiers, targeting Bond. Micro delays in decision-making. Emotional destabilizers, fear and hesitation pulses. Predictive overlays, drones anticipating Bond's every micro-move. Cinematic fight detailing. 1. Bond dodged a coordinated drone volley while sliding behind metal panels. 2. Voss attempted direct combat using tech-enhanced reflexes. 3. Bond improvised, grabbed a dangling cable, swung across, delivering elbow-forearm combo to Voss. 4. Voss countered with neural pulse attack. Bond anticipated chaos, rolled unpredictably, throwing sparks from broken electrical conduits into Voss's sensors. Bond realized he had to separate Voss and Kazuo, dismantle tech first, then finish the fight physically. Bond rolled behind a console, shards secure, observing. Kazuo staggered but alive. Voss's tech partially disabled, drones faltering. The quantum core unstable, ticking toward overload. Bond whispered, "Time to end this, for good." The quantum core hummed dangerously, casting jagged light across the shattered Helios facility. Sparks flew, smoke twisted through corridors, and debris littered every surface. Bond's eyes narrowed. This was the moment where instinct had to surpass any algorithm. Question Bond, core stability dropping. You have one chance to neutralize it. Drones rebooting in 30 seconds. Proceed with caution. Bond exhaled, gripping his combat knife and shards case. Chaos was his weapon, and precision his shield. Kazuo lunged first, faster than ever, spinning through debris like a predator. A Bond ducked low, rolling across wet floor panels, sparks dancing from exposed circuits. Kazuo's elbow slammed toward Bond's chest. Bond pivoted mid-roll, striking ribs with elbow, then a swift knee to the abdomen. Kazuo retaliated with a leg sweep. Bond jumped onto a hanging cable, swung above Kazuo, landing with a spinning elbow-forearm combo. Drones hovered overhead. Bond activated micro-EMP, staggering their sensors, sending them crashing into walls. Every strike, environmental interaction plus unpredictability plus martial arts mastery. Bond grabbed a steel pipe, deflecting Kazuo's baton strikes, using debris as leverage, sending him crashing into a control console. Sparks erupted, smoke obscuring vision, giving Bond the split second he needed to disengage. Voss activated his neural echo amplifier. Bond felt micro-delays in reflexes. An emotional pulse tried to induce hesitation. Predictive overlays projected potential Bond movements. Bond had no time to think, only move. 1. Bond rolled behind shattered console, ducking drone volleys. 2. Swinging across hanging cables, he slammed into Voss with flying elbow, destabilizing him. 3. Voss countered with wrist-mounted neural pulse device. Bond twisted mid-air, redirecting pulse into drone swarm. 4. Sparks flew as core overload signals pulsed, drones crashing, environment collapsing. Every motion cinematic, improvisation, martial arts, environmental interaction, and tech manipulation. Bond's eyes locked on Voss. He knew the fight was human instinct versus algorithmic calculation. Bond focused. Lured Kazuo and Voss into core chamber. Used broken cables, pipes, and shards to create obstacles. EMP bursts staggered drones. Environmental hazards, sparking floors, collapsing scaffolding, broken glass. Combat choreography. 1. Bond lands a spinning elbow to Kazuo, then a knee strike to midsection. 2. Kazuo tries counter. Bond grabs hanging scaffolding, flips him into collapsing support beams. 3. Voss fires neural amplifier pulses. Bond rolls unpredictably, using core's energy arcs to blind sensors. 4. Bond closes distance, a series of precise strikes, forearm, elbow, knee, shoulder, breaking Voss's defenses. 5. Final move, Bond drives Voss into core console, energy overload pulses, core destabilizes. The quantum core explodes in controlled EMP burst, shattering remaining shards, collapsing drones, and permanently ending Voss's neural manipulation tech. Kazuo incapacitated, finally neutralized, trapped under collapsed scaffolding. Voss, defeated, lies unconscious, devices destroyed, no remaining tech to threaten humanity. Bond surveys the wreckage, every threat neutralized, the world safe from Horizon's predictive manipulation. Bond mutters, "Chaos always wins, because it can't be calculated." Bond stands atop the cliff, Pacific waves crashing below, shards now inert, smoke rising from the wrecked Helios facility. Q contacts him via secure line, global network stable. Humanity, unpredictable again. Bond reflects silently. Instinct, improvisation, and human unpredictability had overcome technology designed to control free will. Helicopter arrives. Bond disappears into storm clouds, leaving only a trail of reflection and rain. Final cinematic image. Bond's silhouette against thunder and lightning, the world restored but the shadow of Voss's ambition lingering as a hint for future missions. The story ends with triumph, chaos, and human instinct prevailing, ready for the next adventure.